Hi guys, this is Stuart from hdrishop, and today I'm going to go through a quick tutorial of how to set up one of our HDRIs and a backplate in Modo. So you can see here we've got a model of a car, and this is one of Modo's stock models. So if you want to use this, it's in Presets, Vehicles, Automotive, and it's Toy Car 1. So the first thing I want to do is see what's going on in the scene. So to do that, I'm just going to press F8 and that'll spawn a preview, and you can see there everything's dark. You can just see the fin of the car there. So the first thing we want to do so we can see what's going on is go over and activate the global illumination. So to do that, we go into the shaders panel and we select render and go down to global illumination, and you'll see in indirect illumination there's a tab called enable. We just want to click that, and that lights the scene up. There we go. So that's not looking too bad straight off the bat. A bit grey maybe. So what we want to do is go into the environments tab, and at the moment this lighting is being generated by the environment material. So you see these two colours here. So if I select that white colour there and just cycle this round, you'll see this psychedelic environment happening. So what we want to do is import our HDRI in over the top of this to override it, and to do that we go into add layer and go down to image map and load image, and then we cycle to our HDRI folder. So if we go in here and HDRI and we load this, and what I'm going to do as well is just rename this environment so that there's no confusion with what we're going to do in a moment. So while that loads in, you'll see the HDR in the background there. So to rename this, I'll select the environment and right click and rename, and we'll call it underscore HDRI. There we go. Okay, so you can see the HDR in the background. This floor's getting in the way at the moment, so I think we're going to turn that off for the moment. So we go back into the items tab and there's floor. Let's switch that off, and just to make things a little bit clearer, I'm going to select the camera and change its focal length for the moment down to 15mm, and then that will force the environment back and we can see exactly what's going on in our environment. Spin around, there we go. So we can see what's going on now. Now the next thing we need to do is load in our backplate. So we're going to do that in the same way we did with the HDRI. So back into the shader tab. And what I'm going to do here is just select this environment and close it. What we're going to do is duplicate this. So select it, right click and duplicate. And our backplate is going to live under this environment tab. So right click and rename, and let's call that backplate, or BP for short. Now at the moment we've still got a copy of our HDR in there and we don't want that, so we're going to select that guy and delete him. So right click and delete. So our HDRI still lives in here. There he is there. So I'm going to close that guy up, and that's lighting the scene. And we're going to now import our backplate in. So if I go back up to add layer and go down to image map and load image, and then we'll cycle back to our backplates folder, and I think I'll load backplate 3 and wait for that to come in. Now at the moment everything looks the same. That's because our environment here is overriding the visibility on our backplate. So if I just select environment HDRI and turn off visibility to camera, you'll see our backplate come in there. Now there's a couple of things wrong with this. Firstly, its projection is wrong. It's brought it in and it's projecting it spherically, and we don't want that. We want a camera projection. So to do that, we select the image and we'll go down to its texture locator. Slide this up so we can see what we're doing. And in properties, go down to projection. You'll see there projection type is spherical. That's not what we want. So we want to go down to front projection, which means we can project it through the camera. And this camera we're looking through now, in projection camera, we can select that, select camera, and there's our back plate there, smashing. So the problem now with this, the remaining problem is it's looking very washed out, and the reason for that is that Modo's set up to a linear workflow. So if we select final color output, you'll see there the output gamma is 2.2, and our backplate is an sRGB image, so we need to compensate for that on the image and put a gamma compensation on it. So if we go up to the images tab, and you will see our HDR there, and we'll see our backplate here. So we open up the backplate and we'll select the backplate, and in its properties there on its texture layers, you can see at the bottom there there's a setting called gamma, and we want to put in a gamma compensation there of 0.4545, and you'll see our image changes back to the correct color. Fantastic. So the next step is to align our HDR with our backplate so that the lighting and the reflections work correctly and they're coming from the right direction. So to do that, we'll go back into the shader tab and we'll select our environment HDR and turn its visibility back on to see where it's positioned. See, it's in the wrong place at the moment. Now, what we need to do is just select this and go to its texture locator tab there, and you'll see in its transforms there's a rotation X, Y, Z, and we want to rotate it on its Y axis, so we'll spin that. Now as well with this, when Modo imports these large images, it brings them in the wrong way. It's a different direction to the way the backplate is. It's mirrored, so we need to compensate for that as well. So in horizontal wrap there, you'll see a setting of 1. If we just enter -1 in there, it'll flip the HDRI over, so that's working from the right direction there. So if I just rotate that, I think that drain pipe was about there somewhere. So now if I just cycle off the visibility, yeah, that's pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with that actually. Okay, so now our lighting and reflection is going to work with everything aligned. Now the only difference now is our 3D camera has a different focal length to our 2D camera. This backplate was shot with a 35mm focal length, and at the moment we're set to a focal length of 15mm. That's why there seems to be quite a lot of perspective on this car. So if we now just change this to 35, and the car shoots forward there, so we'll just need to slide this guy back, maintaining the angle. So as a still, if we want to just rotate the car, we can select it in item mode up here, select the car and just press E to rotate, and you'll see there that the car spins round but stays at the same angle. And I think, yeah, that looks quite nice. So I'll deselect that, press space, and I think maybe it just needs to tilt down a bit just to match the angle of the floor. That's right, and that looks to be about the right angle now. So at the moment we've got a nicely lit car, but we've got no shadows underneath it, so it looks as if it's floating. That's because we switched the floor off earlier on. So to turn that back on, we go back into the items tab, select floor and click the visibility back on. Now we've got the shadows that we want, but we've got a big floor plane that we need to get rid of, and this is pretty easy to achieve in Modo. So we go back into the shaders tab and just select the floor there. You can see select by surface in the preview window, which is really handy. So we'll select the floor, and what I've done here is add a shader onto the floor so it has its own controls for its visibility and its GI, but also it has an alpha control here, which is currently set to opacity. If we select that and go down to shadow catcher, now it alphas out the rest of the floor but maintains the contact shadow. So very quickly and easily we get our model appearing on the floor and casting a nice shadow and looking really pretty. So that's great. Now the only thing we might want to do is just change how brightly the image is lit, or maybe it wants to be a bit darker. So to do that we would select the environment tab that's lighting the scene, which is our environment HDRI, and we can cycle up this intensity setting. So if we just slide that up a bit, see it gets very bright and burnt out. maybe that's far too much really. So maybe you want to go a bit darker. Slide that under. It's quite an overcast day, so we'll just slide that down a bit further and let that cycle through. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. And I'm quite pleased with that. Maybe we'll alter the angle slightly. And that's our final image with our backplate aligned with our HDR, lighting the scene with a nice contact shadow. And that's it. Well, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you on the next tutorial. Cheers.